And it from the very beginning became, I sort of went into it thinking, oh, this is a good way to make a little moolah, to hang out and talk to fans. And it's become, to me, about the fans. To me, it's not about the part that I played in these movies, it's about the part that these movies played in your lives. And to me, that's the big change that happened, and it happened very quickly, actually.
Excellent. So, like I said, if you guys have questions, come on up. Otherwise, I will take your entire time. Trust me, I will do it. I've done it before. So I'm sure we're going to get to some film-related questions, but before we do that, I want to shine a light on and talk to you a little bit about your podcast, Cooking by Heart. Tell us a little bit about the impetus, the idea behind starting the podcast.
Well, when I was a kid, my father, from the time I can remember, because he'd had the restaurant for a long time, my dad owned a restaurant. He was a Greek immigrant who came over to this country in the 1920s, a long time ago, and he bought a restaurant in a small town in West Virginia, a coal mining town, and that's where I grew up, in a town called Beckley, West Virginia. And from the time I was 8 or 9 years old, when I was old enough to reach over, look over the counter in the restaurant, I worked in the restaurant. I started out in the back washing dishes, and then I moved to cleaning up in the kitchen, helping the cooks clean up. And then I moved out front. I was bussing tables for a long time, and then I graduated to cashier.
Big step up.
I kept moving up, yeah, I kept moving up. Well, the boss's son.
Yeah, repetition.
And then I was the host, and they set bus tables my entire career there. And then I worked there from the time I was a kid until the time I went to college. So during the pandemic, there were a lot of people who were doing podcasts, and I had a brother-in-law, who's a podcast freak. And he said to me, what are you doing now? And I said, well, I'm languishing, nobody's working, all the movies, the studios are shut down, there's no work. And he said, do a podcast. And I looked at him like he was crazy. I don't know what am I going to make a podcast about? And he says, come on. He said, you're Greek, your father owned a restaurant, you cook for us all the time, because I've always cooked my entire life. Do a podcast about food. So I started listening to food podcasts, and they all seemed very interesting, but nothing really touched what I want to talk about. I couldn't figure out what, and then I went, whoop, eureka, the light bulb went off. You worked in a restaurant from the time you were 9 years old until you were 18. Talk to people about what it was like in their house when they were growing up, because there are always stories surrounding food. If it's that the food was, I did a podcast, one of my first ones was a guy by the name of Michael Patrick King, who was one of the showrunners on Sex and the City, and he's the showrunner now on what's the sequel that's running on HBO? Do you guys remember? Sex and the City?
Yeah, it's a different name, but I don't
Yeah. Anyway, that Michael, it's his show now. And Michael's a very funny guy. He did stand-up comedy for a long time. And he said, you'd think that people would be talking about these great dishes that they had in their homes when they were growing up. And Michael said, no, the only time there was any flavor in our food in our house is when my mother cried in the mashed potatoes.
So it got dark in a hurry.
Yeah. But it's more about the people and the stories. So then that description of his mother then painted a picture of what life was like in his house when he was growing up. A very unhappy mom, obviously. As it turns out, a difficult relationship with the father, etc., etc. So it's really about the people and the stories as much as it is about the food. Although I talk to chefs, I talked to movie stars, I talked to, last week I talked to a guy by the name of Griffin Dunn, who's a actor, who directed a movie called, this is a famous movie, and I can't remember the name of the movie, and I'll remember it, of course, as soon as the panel is over.
Yes.
I have some extraordinary people. Rosanna Arquette started the first season. My ex-wife Susan Sarandon was a guest last year. So anyway, it's been great fun. I'm having a fabulous time. And now I'm talking to people who grew up, the children of Hollywood stars who have become very highly accomplished in their own lives. So I'm talking to this week's show is a woman named Nancy Silvers, whose father was Phil Silvers, Sergeant Bilko, and he's an amazing comic actor. But the story is very unusual because his Phil Silver's wife grew up in the South. So my friend Nancy grew up eating cornbread and fried chicken, and the recipe that she put on the website is a fried chicken recipe from her Namaw, right? From growing up in the South. Exactly. So there are always surprises. It's a wonderful experience. I have a great time doing it.
Absolutely. If you guys haven't listened to it yet, it's called Cooking by Heart. Be sure to check it out wherever you get your podcasts. We have a couple questions. Let me bring. Sorry.
Yeah,
Let me bring
it's
a microphone.
chrissorenda.com. You can go, and all the links are but including video. I do them all in video too.
Is that you just wanted the name of the podcast? Okay, cool. You had a question?
Yeah.
So what?
Well, first, what's your name?
My name is Jake.
Hi,
Very
Jake.
nice to meet you.
Same here.
So how did you land the role of Jack Skellington?
I auditioned. Yeah, you know, they had already done all of Danny Elfman's songs. Danny I just had an orange, so it's speaking to me. They had done all of Danny Elfman's songs. Those of you in back, if you want to come a little closer and make this a more intimate experience, please feel free. Otherwise, stay where you are. They had done all of Danny's songs and they had animated them as well. So then they just did a casting call where they called in actors who they thought might be, you know, the right for the role. And I think essentially what they were looking for was somebody who had a voice that matched Danny's enough so the transitions between the speaking parts in the movie and the singing were seamless. And I think you generally agree that they are pretty seamless. I mean, a lot of people don't know that I didn't do the singing, that Danny did the singing. And then a lot of people don't know that Danny didn't do the acting part. And it was a straight audition. I just walked in, they showed me photos of the sets and some of the work that they had done, and then also played some of the Danny singing some of the songs. And then I just read some lines from the movie, and like a couple of days later I got a call, and they said, you know, you're coming to San Francisco. And I would go to San Francisco every 3 months or so, and I would sit in the studio with a director whose name is Henry Selick, not Tim Burton, as I'm sure you guys know. Tim created the story, he created the characters, the visual of the characters, but Henry directed the movie. And Henry and I sat in the studio and recorded. We recorded for like 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Then I'd fly back home, and they would animate the stuff that I had done first by putting the audio together of the scene from hundreds of takes. Because literally we would sit there and he'd go, "No, try it this way. No, try it this way. Or he'd try it 5 times just off the top of your head." And then he'd sew all that together, and then they would animate the movie. And we'll get into a little bit more of how the movie was actually made if there are any other questions about that. Okay?
Very good.
What's your name?
Emily.
Hi, Emily.
Just want to say,
Hmm?
I'm a really big fan of Nightmare Before Christmas, especially my cousins. We've watched that movie more times in Halloween and Christmas than I can remember. But when you were filming Nightmare Before Christmas, did you have any like memorable moments when filming, or with the other actors that you mimicked moments?
Actually, I only worked with one other actor, Catherine O'Hara. Catherine and I did the Jack Sally scenes together during one recording session. Other than that, I never saw another actor. And didn't know anybody from the movie until, you know, over the last few years when we've gotten together at conventions and various events at Disney. And I became actually ultimately a very close friend of Ken Pace, God rest his soul, who was an extraordinary man and a great actor and singer. I've met Catherine a couple of times, the mayor, who's no longer with us, I believe, and a number of the other people who've been in the movie, including Paul Rubens, who's no longer with us. Boy, this is
What brings down?
a funeral. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't really work with anybody except for the director, except that one time with Catherine.
All right, thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you, Emily.
I like what she pointed out. They watch it at Halloween, they watch it at Christmas. For you, in your mind, is it a Halloween film or is it a Christmas film? Or does it transcend the holiday even though it's holiday themed?
This is the universal question.
Yes. Just get it out of the
Asked
way.
by every panel group that I've ever been in front of.
Yep.
And I know Ken, Paige, and I used to do these together all the time. And Ken and I would look at each other, and then we would look back and we would say in unison, both.
Yes.
Because I think it is perfectly apropos for both Halloween and Christmas.
Hello, what is your name?
My name is Brian, and I have just one question
Hey, Brian.
about The Nightmare Before Christmas. All the sequels that are made out there, there's one I have a deep passion and compassion about. And I was wondering if you ever read this novel, Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw.
Oh,
If you
no,
have-
I haven't.
What, oh, you haven't?
No.
I would recommend you read it. It's actually a good book with some surprising twists and turns in it, but
Mm.
it's a really good book.
Are you related to the author?
On the payroll?
No.
Well, then show the book to these folks so they can see it. Because it looks kind of cool. Actually, there's somebody out there, a young lady who's nodding, going, yeah, I like that one. That's good.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Thanks
And
for
a
the
good-
recommendation.
yes.
Let me come to you with the microphone. Hang on one second. Alrighty, what is your name?
Kaya.
Hi, Tom.
Pardon?
What's your name?
Kaya.
Kaya. I'm sorry, Kaya.
It's okay.
I'll adjust my hearing aid.
So I'm a big fan of Nightmare Before Christmas, but I'm also a big fan of The Princess Bride. I was wondering, from both movies, what was your favorite line?
From Nightmare, because to me, it's the quintessentialness of Jack, is Eureka. And there's something about that word, before the movie, by the way, it was associated with the gold rush in California. Eureka, we found gold, etc., etc. And it is a word that it encapsulates so much feeling and expression of Jack's character to me that's my favorite. And it's also one of the favorites that I loved doing when I was recording as well. The one from The Princess Bride, I guess I have a couple. One was I'm Swamped. When Prince Humperdinck is asked by his friend Count Reuben to come down to the pit with me, and he says, and I believe it or not, I can't remember all the lines. I've got my wife to murder, Gilda framed for it, blah, 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 I'm swamped. It's, again, such a quintessential element of the character where he throws off basically this horrible list of things that he has to do, but in a way that's like, and I'm completely overwhelmed in my life. Feel sorry for me, right? When this guy is, the most powerful man in the kingdom. He also has another line where there's a guy, and I forgot the guy's name, who's kneeling at his feet, and he's asking him something, and he wants to know, why can't you do this? And Prince Humperdinck turns to him and says, try ruling the world sometime. Again, that kind of frustration with, I've got all this power, and look what it gets me. Nothing but frustration. Those are, and also they're the ones that are most fun to play too.
Good
Thank
question.
you very much.
Okay. Hello, what is your name?
Luke.
Hey, Luke.
Nice to meet you. I've loved the two movies, Princess Bride and Nightmare, since I was a kid. I made a drawing of all the characters when I was a little kid. My mom hung it on the refrigerator. I have two questions, if I may.
Oh, please.
The first one is for Princess Bride. What is your opinion on its connection to Shrek? Would you say that if it weren't for no, seriously. If it weren't for The Princess Bride, we wouldn't have Shrek. Because the way it kind of pokes fun at the whole fairy tale.
Is Shrek post or pre Princess Bride?
It's post.
It's post Princess Bride. I don't know. I mean,
Your
I can't
character is
speak.
very much a
Yeah,
Lord Farquaad kind of character.
Yeah. I can't really speak to the people who wrote them because it's very much about the tone of the movie. And you're saying the characters of Prince Farquaad and Prince Humperdinck are similar,
Very similar.
in very fatuous kind of full of
Yes.
themselves,
Yes.
powerful.
They both
I
want
think
that ride and everything.
right. I think they both, what they have in common is that in these movies, what's important is that the characters don't make fun of the genre of the movie they're in. They're not looking at the audience kind of, you know, sideways and going, we all know that this is a joke. They play the situation very seriously. I've got an example of that.
Okay.
When I auditioned for The Princess Bride, for Rob Reiner and William Goldman, and I was very, very upset on my way to the audition because I'm a big sports fan and the New York Knicks had drafted somebody that I was very unhappy about, right? So I get off the bus and I have this newspaper in my hand about this draft choice that the Knicks had gotten, and I walk into the apartment and there's William Goldman, one of the great screenwriters in Hollywood history, multiple Oscar winner, etc., and Rob Reiner, one of the great directors of Hollywood history, particularly more contemporary history. And they said, "How are you?" And I said, I'm sorry to bring this in to the meeting, but the New York Knicks just picked Kenny Skywalker, and I'm very upset about it." And luckily or unluckily, William Goldman happened to be a Knicks fan. And he went, "Oh yes, I mean, my God, you bet." And he and I sort of went off on this conversation about the New York Knicks draft choice, right? And about 10 minutes into the conversation, Rob Reiner goes, "Excuse me, guys, you think maybe we could read the scene?" So I read the scene, and the scene was, and I don't know if you remember this scene, I'm looking at the young lady who asked me about lines from the movie, where ultimately Buttercup threatens suicide if she doesn't have her, find her Wesley, right? And Humperdinck says, "I hope you will consider me as an alternative to suicide." And when I finished that line in the reading, Rob Reiner burst out laughing. And I looked at him like, "How dare you? I just did a very serious scene in which I'm trying to convince this young woman," and then I went, of course, the secret to that movie and Shrek is that the characters play the comedy seriously. That there's a line in show business, comedy is serious business. That if you play the joke, then it's not as funny as if the character's totally into the fact that he said something ridiculous, right? And he's totally unaware of it. If you're aware of it, it's different. You're making fun of it. If you're not aware of it, then you're having fun with it in the context of the movie.
And it shows that there's still some humanity there to Humperdinck.
Yes, absolutely, because he's got his own problems. He's got his wife to murder. Guilty and afraid for it. Come on, try ruling the world sometime.
My other question is about Jack Skellington. Why do you think he feels so different from the rest of Halloween Town? What is it that estranges from that language?
Well, I think this is one of the things that makes this movie so universally popular, particularly as you get older. Kids enjoy it, obviously, for the visuals and the songs, little kids. But I think as you get older, you realize, and maybe it's unconscious, I don't know, that this guy, we all have existential problems in our lives. We all worry about our existence. Why am I here? Is it just about me going to the office every day? And in a way, that's Jack's predicament. He's going to the office every day. He's the king of, the king of Halloween. He's the guy who's totally representative. What else is there out there for me? And we've all felt that way. I mean, as I'm looking at you, I'm seeing a few people, yes, of course. That's how I feel about my life sometimes. Not always, but sometimes, right? And I think that's what it is about Jack that makes us, it draws us into the movie and keeps us going back. Not only that, but also the visual richness of the movie and the great visual jokes in the movie and the animation, which is astonishing. Yeah. But to me, that's what keeps us coming back. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Great
Thank
meeting.
you. Sure. Hello. Welcome back. Oh, hi there. Emily?
Yeah.
Hi.
Because my brain's running 200 miles an hour right now. So
Oh, unbelievable. I understand. A little
like
too much
I have
coke?
like 4 different trains of thought going on.
Yes?
What is your favorite moment from being recognized by a fan? Just like being in general.
In general. No. I have one. I do. I actually have one or two. One is many years ago I was making a movie in Los Angeles, and I was there with my family, my little kids, and my wife, and they happened to be off somewhere, and I had an off day, and I was hanging around the house, and we were in a rental house, and there was a cable guy there, and he'd been there like all day, just working very silently, trying to fix the cable because the TV was all screwed up, something was wrong, right? And at the end of the day, since I'm the tenant of the house, he comes over to me to give me the thing to sign, and as I'm signing, this is what I hear. I'm surprised you come out in the daytime. And he hadn't said a word to me all day, not one word, and then I hear this, just sort of, he's standing like right there. I'm surprised you come out in the daytime. And it was a wonderful moment because it was not a kind of fanboy reaction. It was, I know who you are, I'm cool and you're cool, and I just want to kind of, let you know that I know. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you, Emily.
I do want to ask one question as they're kind of thinking of another one. We're going to wrap up shortly. Serious actor, Oscar-nominated actor. We want you to do a vampire movie. Tell us a little bit about Fright Night and how all that came together for you.
At the time, and as you mentioned, at the time I was doing a lot of stuff for sort of special event television, adaptation of great novels. I was doing You Can't Go Home Again, the Thomas Wolfe novel. I was playing two characters in A Tale of Two Cities, and I was in London, in Paris, playing these two characters with all these great British actors, and I was pretty full of myself at the time, right? And I'd gotten an Oscar nomination. And then I'm at home one day, and a script came, and this was an offer for you for a movie called Fright Night. And I looked at the cover and I went, come on, I'm an important actor. I can't do a movie called Fright Night. And also, this was at a time when the horror genre was considered to be the B movie of Hollywood, right? This was in the 80s. Now, horror movies, the movie studios can't wait to make horror movies because they make a lot of money and they have a very strong central audience. But at the time, they were sort of a niche. And also at the time, the vampire movie had kind of run its course, and a lot of comedies were out that made fun of vampire movies. Love at First Bite. There may be one or two others, right? And I'm looking at the title of this thing, and I said, I can't. I'm a big time actor. But I've always felt that if somebody goes to the trouble to offer you something, you owe it to them to read the script and then say no. Right? So I sat down and I started reading the script, and I got like maybe 10 or 12 pages into it, and I thought, this is actually pretty interesting. And I keep reading, and finally I finished it in like, an hour and 10 minutes. I breezed through it. And I thought, I gotta meet these guys. It's the writer is the director, and it was his first movie, Tom Holland. And so they flew me out to California, and I sat down with Tom and Herb Jaffe, the producer, and we talked for like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and Tom said, I want to give you an idea of what this movie is going to be like. And I said, oh, okay, sure. And Tom proceeded to describe the movie from the first shot of the movie through every shot of the movie, all the way to the end. He had it all mapped out in his head, exactly how he was going to shoot it, exactly when the camera was going to move, this was going to happen. And by the end of the presentation, I was completely enthralled and just went, I can't, this is, yes, I want to do this movie. And it was one of the great experiences of my career, actually. We had a great time shooting it. It was also probably one of the last of the non-CGI special effects horror movies where all the effects are practical. And the cast was great. We're all still good friends. Whenever we do one of these, we go out to dinner together afterward. It's a great group of people. It was a fabulous experience. So just, trust your instincts sometimes in life. And I'm glad I trusted mine on that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have a question? What is your name, sir?
Hi, my name's Dave.
Hi, Dave.
I was just curious, do you have any kind of memory of something that happened during the night before Christmas that you wanted to share?
Well, the abiding memory to me is being able to, first of all, you walked into that building in San Francisco. It was kind of like an office building that they converted into a movie set because it had a basement with all the little sets. There were several little sets on it. And when I first walked in, the lobby had various things like punching bags and ping pong tables and pinball machines. It looked like an arcade, except it looked like an arcade for people who were very frustrated. Understandably, because literally that process is frame by frame by frame. And if you think about the way that movie stop action animation is shot, we did a panel a number of months ago, 6-8 months ago, with Ken Page and a couple of producers, and they were talking about the actual process, which essentially was they felt good if they got 1 second of film a day. Now, and they were shooting for 3 years. If they were lucky, 7-8 seconds a week. It was a very arduous process where literally, there were 400 Jack heads. And every head had a tiny little change in it so that if Jack smiled, Jack was there. Then if Jack started to smile, there was another head for that. Then if the smile had to continue, another head for that, another head until Jack had that total smile. But at the same time, they're operating Jack's limbs as well, or he's moving through a scene as well. To this day, I think about that process and think, wow. And the extraordinary kind of compilation of artistry is, to me, astonishing. Still, when I watch the movie, I just think, wow. When I think about what all the moving parts are, I just think, this is an incredible work of art.
You're right. It's the perfect blend of the science, having the mathematics figured out, and the artistry of how does this work.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Did you have a question? Hi, what's your name?
Abby,
Hi, Abby.
I was going to ask, have you ever had your own fanboy moment where you met somebody and became a fanboy?
Yes. When I mentioned earlier that I had done an adaptation of The Tale of Two Cities, and when I first walked into the rehearsal room we weren't shooting in a studio yet, we were ultimately shooting at a place called Shepperton Studios. When I first walked into the rehearsal room, there was Peter Cushing. And he was sitting, I have to do him. All right? And he's sitting in a chair, and he has a cigarette in his fingers, right? And he has a white glove on his right hand with the top notch of his fingers cut out, because the cigarette was here so that it wouldn't stain his fingers, because he constantly had a cigarette in his hand. And he was like this. And I walked in and he said, "Hello, dear boy." And I thought, wow. Wow, Peter effing Cushing, just went, "Hello, dear boy," to me. And it was, it was a thrill. It was really a thrill. Yes?
Another question. Well, how would you like working with Al Pacino in the 1975 crime drama movie Dog Day Afternoon?
Oh, that was a great experience.
He sounds like an angry person all the time.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, he's a working actor. Al approaches everything as a working actor. He's a student of the art of acting. He goes into everything. He's a very collaborative actor. We did a lot of improvisation in the rehearsals, especially the telephone scene. We did a lot of improvising, not on the set, but in rehearsals we did. And it was rehearsed like a play. So that we spent 3 weeks in a rehearsal room with props and pieces of furniture and various parts of the bank mapped out on the floor or the barber shop of the set. And during the shooting, he and I would get together and just run the scene every once in a while just to keep it fresh because we were shooting it at different times. I shot it on one night and he shot it on another. That is our respective parts of the scene that we were together in. No, he was great. Yeah, he's a working actor. He does plays. He's a fabulous guy.
Yeah, I think in one article I read, there was supposed to be a scene where you and him were supposed to kiss, but he didn't want to do it because it was like too exploitative. That's what he said.
I mean, that may have been going on before I came on board, but there was no kissing scene in the movie. In fact, you know, when the character arrives, this is a moment of high anxiety and conflict between the two characters, and they never spent any time together in real life on that day, on the dog day afternoon.
All right.
Yeah. Sure thing.
Alrighty, last call. We have time for maybe one more question if anybody has one. If not, the questions that you guys think of throughout the day, be sure to stop by Chris Speda's table all weekend. Get the photos, autographs, those questions, all taken care of right there. Have you guys had a good time this last half hour? Yeah? Right on.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Before you guys take off, stay where you are. We have a request of all you. We'd like to get a photo with you for the convention to post on social media. You can find yourself once that goes up. So we'll just kind of come maybe to the floor right here.